Hello, the internet! Where the fuck is my TV? So we've come to the end of the year, and rather than doing the worst of or best of list, because honestly I don't play that many games during the course of the year, I'm going to go through the games that I played and finished this year. I would play more games that actually come out during the year, but not for a couple of reasons. One is time, one is money, and well, the third one is probably the biggest. If you see that little corner over there, I can ignore the books that you might be able to pick out. That's but 3 shelves of games. I have not completed at least half of those. I've probably not even touched a fair chunk of them. That's not all the games, there's more on my TV shelf here. Basically, my bed and TV have swapped places. You know, sometimes you get a bout of insomnia and you just have to rearrange furniture. You've been there, you know what I'm talking about. That's not even counting Steam and GOG that add on to this whole total of games I've not touched. So it's a bit tragic. So yeah, I'm going to go through the games that I've finished and completed this year. Let's start at the beginning for some reason. Number 1 and technically 2, Metroid Zero Mission and Metroid Fusion. Now, I didn't actually play these on the GBA, embarrassingly enough, because I just got a PSP. If you remember the Broken Sword 2 review, I'd said a while back I got myself a PSP with a new job. That was December 2010, and I just decided to get a PSP one day. Since I just started the job in December, I didn't have time to take any extra holidays or book them in, or you know what I mean. So I was in for a couple of days between Christmas and New Year, and I just wandered about, decided I was going to get myself a PSP, and after a lot of research, you have to pick out your PSP carefully, because the 3000 have a weird screen, the first one isn't as powerful, it has less RAM, so you have to be picky with that kind of thing. Oddly enough, they've not got the SNES emulation down on that yet. Because they don't have the standby feature working properly. They basically disabled it on the most popular one, I can't remember what it is, because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't save any more battery power than it would have normally, which is... something's gone wrong there. Which was actually a segue why I was playing it on the PSP in the first place. I have a GBA. I've been playing a couple of games quite merrily on that for a while, but you know, first I had to track down the carts, and then it just became easier to play it on the PSP because you could just use the standby feature. Standby, get off the train, go to work, come back, turn the standby off, you're exactly where you left off. It was a pleasurable convenience. Anyway, I should probably talk about the games. Obviously, one of them is just a remake of the original Metroid on the NES. Are we the only ones that call it the NES, by the way, over like UK and Europe, I think? Because everybody else seems to say NES or 8-bit Nintendo or things like that. It's SNES as well. Everybody else seems to say Super Nintendo. I've never figured that out. Anyway, so played for these 2 games. I did like them. Obviously, whichever one it is, it's a remake of Metroid. My memory's gone very shorty here. I think it was Zero Mission. Because, yeah, it must have been because it had the extra mission added onto it, which I'll get to in a second. But, you know, I just like going back to see what the classics I missed growing up were. I mean, I had an NES for a while, stopped working, we never really got any new games for it anyway, and just kind of missed out. After that, all I had was Sega consoles growing up. Yeah, I know. First world problems. So yeah, Zero Mission's kind of short, but not unexpected considering it's a remake of an NES game. And one thing I noticed about the stealth sections was they're actually not too badly done. The stealth element of it doesn't actually last as long as you'd think. It's still a big chunk of the game, but you do get your weapons eventually, and then you mow through fuckers. Metroid Fusion, on the other hand, it was good, but I've played Super Metroid, and I remember a bigger distinction between all the different areas. It's not maybe in terms of colour, because Fusion was very colourful. That's the first thing I noticed. And I'm finding a lot of GBA games are like that. They just have a bigger, brighter colour scheme. Especially the early ones, because they were made for the GBA without the backlight. So anyway, back on topic. I enjoyed Zero Mission. I even enjoyed the little bit that they added onto it. Fusion, it seemed good. It was like, you know, Super Metroid on a handheld, except without much of a visual variation between the environments, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure what the reason for that would be, considering that this was like full. Was it 32-bit colour? Yeah, it must have been. Jeez, a program for the damn thing, and I can't remember this. You'll find I have a shoddy memory. Wikipedia is my Jesus. But, yep, those two. It's got Zero Mission. Fun way to experience the first one. I don't see a lot being different from the first one, apart from obviously some of the control things that they changed from, that they brought in from Super Metroid, so the diagonal aiming and such. That's got to be really, really handy. Fusion, it was Metroid on the GBA. Yes. Yes, please. More of that. Number 3. Parappa the Rapper. This was actually the first game I got for my PSP because I'd just been playing emulators on it non-stop for a month. This is before I brought my laptop on the train with me to do work. Trusty little laptop here, which you can probably hear from the bloody microphone because the fan makes a hell of a noise. I'll need to take the highly technical step of taking a vacuum to the vent. And if you don't know, because Parappa the Rapper is kind of obscure, it's like one of the first rhythm action games that I ever remember seeing. It was on the original PlayStation, and you had to perform moves through the usual expected button presses at certain times. So something that would go across the screen. It would hit button presses, you'd be copying someone else, and everybody looked like they were made out of paper. It does all this really weird stuff. It's not even weird stuff, it's just relatively ordinary situations that end up being really weird. I say that, the very first scenario is you're learning Kung Fu and rapping, kind of, from a Kung Fu onion. Seriously, like, full Kung Fu, Judo, Karate outfit, white, gi, that's the word I'm looking for. Gi, onion head. It's quite bizarre. I'm wondering if it's actually as good as it was received at the time, because there was like no rhythm action games apart from DDR, and I'm not even sure that I made to consoles yet. No, I must have, because PS2 had some. I'm not actually sure, because this was on the PlayStation 1 first. I'm not actually sure if there's much of an improvement in the PSP version. Maybe it's a bit more anti-alias, less jaggy edges, that kind of thing, but I'm pretty sure I tried both of them, and I remember timing being a bit of an issue. Maybe you can let it off with being one of the first rhythm action games, I don't know, but it's still, you know, more than one time you're going to go into, I hit that, what the... So, it's worth having a nosy at. Some of the music's quite good, and it's just balls out insane to look at, so... Yes. Number 4, Fallout New Vegas. Now, it's no shame of me to admit that Fallout 3 owned my life for as long as it took to complete it, which was a couple of months at least. I don't know what precisely it is about it, because I was never that into the Elder Scrolls games, which is basically Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas are running off the Oblivion engine, but it's a bit better. That's just the long and short of it. They hadn't finished the Skyrim engine by this point, or not to the point where they're going to hand it around to people. Fallout New Vegas seems to be Fallout 3, but with a couple of more things. A couple of more tinkery bits that you don't necessarily have to pay any attention to, but I imagine will give you great benefit if you do, because I couldn't be bothered. I got enough to make myself more sniper ammo, that was it. That was as much as I was going to dabble, because I just wanted a sniper rifle, which kind of bit me in the bollocks when it came towards the end and I was fighting the Romans. Sorry, the Legion. Why Romans? I mean, I get that culture basically ended at 1950 in this universe, but I don't know why they pick Romans. I don't know why they pick that armor. Maybe because there's not even that big a focus on melee combat in this. Like, a lot of the people I was running into had guns, but I wanted more Fallout. I got more Fallout. I was happy. I was very happy. I had to pick my time to play it because I knew it would own me for months after that, and it did, but I got what I wanted, and that was good. It's also nice to see that Obsidian can actually finish a game when they've not been completely fucked over by one publisher or another. I mean, it's not a bugless game by any means, but hell, look at Oblivion, look at Skyrim. Bethesda can't manage that either. I mean, these are big bloody games. I'd love to see something of that size have relatively few bugs, and don't throw GTA as a comparison to me, okay, because one, that does have bugs, and two, those environments are far more boring than something like you would find in one of the Fallout games, or to a certain extent Oblivion, because you're kind of going through a cardboard town essentially. I mean, they've improved. I was looking forward to GTA 4 as well. Oddly enough, the thing I was looking forward to was being able to put things in the trunk of a car, which when I started playing the game for myself, I never did once. So I don't know if that disappeared, or if I never got taught how to do it, or I just forgot. I have no idea, but I just have that very clear memory. Anyway, more Fallout. I was happy. I was happy to actually get it over with because I played it on the hardcore mode. It was hardcore. Not much more I could say about that. What it says on the tin, it did it, yeah. Number 5, Discworld Noir. Now, I've been meaning to get round to this forever. I've had a little PC copy disintegrating back there for many, many, many years. The main problem with it was by the time I got round to wanting to, well, I'd always wanted to play it, but by the time I actually got round to it, there was endless amounts of compatibility issues. I think this was a 98 game, Windows 98 game. So going to 2000 XP, so on, it just got worse and worse and worse. I'm trying to mind if they've actually made a source port of that engine. Well, not a source port, whatever it's called. Replacement engine for it. If I recall correctly, they started to get close. And they maybe just worked out something playable. This will be completely out of date by the time you watch it anyway. But that's what stopped me from doing it. And then I started playing PS1 games on my PSP. You know, suddenly all compatibility issues are solved. The magic of consoles, yeah. And lo and behold, it stood up a little bit better than I remember, actually. This is familiar to anyone who's played the Blackwell games, but you get a notepad of various topics of discussion, and when you talk to other characters, you pick things out of your notebook to talk to them about, and that's how you progress, as well as some rubbing items together puzzles. And that's really nifty. I mean, it took me a hell of a lot longer than I thought it would, or I thought it should, to realise you could combine items within the notebook. It took an embarrassing amount of time to figure that one out. I think I may have had to resort to a walkthrough for that because I was hopelessly stuck. And they don't tell you, as far as I know. If they did tell you, I completely missed it. There is a problem with playing the PS1 version, which is you get some very bad slowdown towards the end of the game for reasons I won't say because I don't want to spoil the game for you. I know it's 100,000 years old, but I'm not going to do that. If I thought it wasn't worth playing, I might just go ahead and spoil it for you. Cough, cough, Orion conspiracy cough. But I like this one, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. And the other good thing is that as far as I know, it came from the same company as had made the first two Discworld games. I've not played the second Discworld game, but the first one is filled to the brim with moon logic. I'm surprised it's not brought up more often as a quintessential example of bloody moon logic. I mean, Terry Pratchett, creator of the Discworld series himself, has been put on record as parodying the amount of moon logic that was in that game. It was just fucking ridiculous. So it's nice to know that they've been able to move on. Like I say, I don't know about Discworld 2 because I haven't played it. Well, eventually. You know, I have this series of videos, Point and Quickie, you may have seen it. Yeah, just saying. That they would go on to actually make a decent go of this. Because apart from the notebook part of it, and I guess that pushes them to a heavier slant towards conversation rather than actual item puzzles. I think, you know, it's kind of a traditional point and click adventure in that respect. Just more conversation, less items. And that works, especially with the notebook, because usually, you know, it's always great to see a little note go up and it's like, yes, I have a new topic of conversation for literally everyone. Not everyone who will give a shit or have an answer for you, but you'll have a new topic of conversation to try. And when you finally figure out you've got another combination of notebook entries to try, that's fun too. So that one's fun. That is worth playing. I seem to have been very lucky in that regard. I've just played a lot of games that I find really, really good. Number 6, Broken Sword 2. So you've seen the review, obviously, and you already know my opinion on it, but I've been meaning to get round to that for a while. So I wasn't necessarily just playing it for the review, I'd been meaning to get round to this one because I played Broken Sword 1 a while back. I've got a friend who's a big Broken Sword fan and occasionally won't shut up about the Knights Templar. Occasionally. It's under control. But I blame that game. Fucking good. Anyway, so yeah, I've just been meaning to get around to that for a while, and since it was convenient, played the PS1 version and didn't really suffer that much for it, as I say in the review. Although I will point out that the method of getting your inventory items, the way they did it is incredibly cheap. In the PC version, you would move your mouse cursor down to the bottom of the screen, and then your inventory items would appear. And you move your mouse cursor away and they'll hide again. So you just move your mouse cursor down to the bottom, select your item, and then do whatever you want with it. The way they got around this in the console version is they literally have a button which shoots your mouse cursor down as fast as it'll go, so until it automatically selects inventory item. And I did feel a bit dirty using that one. It's just like, you can't get a cheat in that regard. If there's something you want to select, it's just a bit lower of where you are, just quickly hit square and just goes. So it becomes a kind of game in itself to see if you can time it just right. So that seemed just a little bit cheap, but it worked. You got to get to your inventory items quickly. What's wrong with a snap? I have no idea, but that's the way they decided to do it. It's not even fair to say that, since they're in a row, then you can say, oh, if your mouse cursor's here, you can get the item that's here on the row. It's hidden. This is hidden until you have a mouse cursor there. You don't know what's there unless you have an eidetic memory. And I'm pretty sure I just mispronounced that, but anyway. So, I've already made the review. You'll find out my opinion from that. Go watch it, it's good. It's all good. The video, that is. I mean, the game is as well. Shit, give it away. At number 7, Blazing Dragons. Now, again, you'll know my opinion on this one. I just stumbled upon this one day and decided I had to own it. I decided I would review it just a little bit later. If not for the fact that it comes from a former Python and it's from a children's TV show that nobody's ever heard of, that might possibly be a little bit good. I didn't watch very much of it, I'll admit, but there was these obviously slightly adult moments for a bit of humour that would just go over the kid's head. Not necessarily because it's lewd or inappropriate, but just because it's that kind of humour. Like somebody says something awkward, or just lets phrase run its course, taking it too far, and everybody else is just looking at him going like that. I'm sure I would have appreciated that kind of humour as a kid. I mean, wouldn't hate it, but I would just be like there going, oh, okay. Wash straight over. Thing is that once you actually watch the show for a little bit, you notice there's a lot of differences between it. For example, if you saw the review, I know you all did, I have to say it's in the script, honest. There's a bit of footage of the intro, and there's this lady dragon who's getting fired by a catapult. I think it's the scene I use. That's the queen. That's the queen of the dragon castle bit, with all the humans over there, and they clash occasionally. And by occasionally I mean every episode. Yeah, she is nowhere to be found in this game, which just seems so strange. I mean, the obvious one was changing Flicker from a squire to just a serf, I guess. Just some guy who is looking after this knight who's completely useless. That bit of character they kept. I don't know if they kept the voice actor for that particular character. I think possibly the only ones that actually came back were people who also wrote. Terry Gilliam obviously does voices for both, and maybe one or two of the other writing staff who also did voice work. It just made me joyous to see that I had the chance to make that dragon spit out the whole cyborg ninja blood and sinew speech. I was actually at first I was just going to go, hurt me more! But I think either didn't sound right, or there was some background noise going on. Because obviously I'd have to take it from the GameCube version, because it was a different voice actor for the PlayStation 1 game. So I don't remember which way around it went, but I had to do the GameCube version, and I just couldn't use that line for whatever reason. Also meant I kind of missed out Cheech Marine. You know, I've heard he's famous. Oh dear. No angry emails yet, so if there's not many Cheech Marine fans, or no, that might be the only one. I mean, it's not as if nobody watches this. But yeah, Blazing Dragons was a bit of fun. It's kind of tame. I mean, I realise that my sense of humour is a little tame sometimes. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy some of the more risque and bizarre or outlandish stuff. But to be honest, Blazing Dragons feels a lot like Discworld without the moon logic. I mean, there's a tiny bit of it in there, one or two things that I'm just not sure about. And something I segued in there very, like, I had to wedge it in there because I realised I would have no hope of figuring out how to manage this with all the other voiceover work that I'd done. Was the mini games. Right, one of them's dancing. One of them is thumb wrestling, which is basically button bashing until you bash another button. The dancing is just DDR. And the other weird one was in this cave of trials that Flicker goes into to become a knight. Yeah, spoilers, he does. Where you have to... It's the cup game where you have 3 cups and they start swapping around. You have to remember which one the ball's under. But they make it more awkward because Flicker can only go for so long without blinking. And the longer you go, there's like the water fills up his eyes and they steam up and eventually have to blink, which takes so much time so you might miss where the cup goes. It's actually a unique twist on it. I quite liked it. And it does play into the sensibilities of the controller you're using. But what got me was the fact that whilst Discworld is obviously really self-referential and makes fun of the fantasy genre a lot, Blazing Dragons is a little bit of that until you get to the end, where they just go balls out with it over the credit sequence, because, you know, the two of them are walking along and one of them comments that they could only afford so much animation. There's a scene afterwards with whatever the fuck his jester name was, phoning his agent, saying he's going to be in the sequel. Spoilers, there wasn't a sequel. Kind of a shame. I think there's a place in this world for that kind of humour. Just like you can go, that's a good joke. I'll sometimes do that. I won't laugh sometimes, I will just go, that's a clever joke. I think the one that made me actually giggle a little bit in real life was the do you believe in reincarnation line? When he was asking when the Queen would be back. Depends, do you believe in reincarnation? It's charming in a way, is what I would say. That's what I came away from it with. It's got this charm to it that makes the humour work. And it is still worth 20 quid for a couple of hours of good humoured clicking. Number 8, Gunstar Superheroes. I barely remembered what happened in this game. I fucking love the first game. I've still not tracked down an actual copy of it, but I've got this classic collections that's 4-in-1 with Flicky, Alex Kidd and the Enchanted Castle, and Altered Beast, I think. No, but seriously, love this game. I'm still pissed that Edge magazine gave it a 6 out of 10 review. It's just wrong. And the thought that they might have another of these games, just the pants were filled. I had to have new pants. I didn't have to switch them around. I had to get rid of these ones because there's a giant hole where the crotch was. I was that excited. Not that I could afford a GBA, of course, so this was a while later that I actually got to play it. And it was there. I mean, I think there must have been some kind of laziness bug going around when they did this, because Guardian Superheroes is kind of the same. It's far too tailored towards a smaller handheld medium, because it's far too short. I mean, they throw a lot of ideas. There's this part where it's basically a shooting section. I like to think of it as reverse space harrier, because you're here in the middle of the screen and your guy is standing up on the top there, and you're heading towards, so imagine your monitor, your GBA, you're holding it like this, the thing is coming towards you, and then from behind that is where the enemies swarm in and swarm around, because you move left and right, it rotates the craft, and then you can shoot at the different things that have appeared at different points. And it kind of worked, but it just got awkward. There's also a stage based off of Flicky. Speaking of that classic collections, it is Flicky, but it's set in one of those things, this spiral mazes that you have a little ball. You'd have to rotate, so let gravity drop the ball and get it down to the edge or the centre of the maze or whatever you decided you were doing. And that's basically their Flicky level, because the original Flicky was just plain side-scrolling. And this one rotates this huge circular hedge. It's a unique idea. It didn't work. So they've got a lot of these sort of small experimental sections. If you remember Gunstar Heroes, the first level will last you between 5 and 10 minutes. The first level in Gunstar Superheroes will last you about 4. It's just, for some reason they assume people are going on 5-minute bus journeys, and that's all that they could possibly fit into that period of time. I don't get it, I don't know why they did it that way. And my favourite part of Gunstar Heroes, apart from all the melee attacks you could do, okay, so just jump kicks and slides, because that's all I figured out, but apart from that you could switch your weapon combinations. You had 2 slots for different types of weapons. You could use them one individually at a time, or you could combine them to make an all new weapon, and that was just awesome. That's not in there. You kind of have 2 weapons, but it's not quite the same, and they might have ammo, and there's some kind of burst attack which is stronger and sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, and Oh, it's not explained at all. God knows I wasn't going to get a version of this that had the manual, so I just persevered through it, but yeah, it's just that for some reason they switched everything down into strictly this cannot last anyone more than 4 minutes mentality. I don't get it. So there you go, I played one bad game this year at least. Number 9, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Now, you know how I was just saying about Gunstar Superheroes not allowing it to last 4 minutes because it's on a handheld console? Peace Walker gets this perfectly done. It does it so well. And it does kind of help that you can just hit standby in the middle of any mission and just go back to it whenever you want. But even then, you can breeze through a mission in about 10 minutes, which to me is a good length. I mean, if I take a 10-minute bus journey, I kind of think, why aren't I walking? I'll take it for speed, sure, but if I can have the choice of walking, I'll just save the bus fare, thank you very much. But it just, not only does it get the timing right for the individual missions, but it makes it feel that much bigger than it really is. It just feels like this massive game, even though you're getting it broken up every 10 minutes to go back to base and fiddle with all these different things, all your crew, your research, how much money you're getting in, how well fed everyone is, building Metal Gear Zeke. Incidentally, fuck building Metal Gear Zeke. Because they want you to take down that Metal Gear for one more part, which I never got, because I couldn't be fucked even trying anymore. It took me months to get to the point where I was at already. It took me another 2 months to give up. They essentially want you to do the final boss battle again, but it's harder. No. No thank you. But you know, apart from that, pretty fun. I actually admit, I'm loving this cutscene thing they do where you can... They've done it since Metal Gear Solid 2, I believe, where you can zoom in and move around the camera and actually apply to the comic book cutscenes as well. Which was a fairly good way of saving money, I grant you, but you know, they just added that little bit to make sure you didn't get bored watching the cutscene, because even if you didn't give a fuck what the people were actually saying, you was like, oh, I'm going to zoom in on his mustache. Okay, that might have just been me, but it was still vaguely entertaining while you were trying to pick up bits of the plot. And speaking of plot, number 10, Mass Effect 3. Oh, now this one I'd been looking forward to. It took me so long to get into the first Mass Effect. My flatmate at the time had the Xbox because he had actual money. We were supposed to be poor students, but this guy could afford an Xbox. He was coming up from England though, so maybe he got some kind of big ass grant or bursary or something. But he was able to get that. And I restarted that so many times. Not just because I'd fucked up the customization somewhere and I suddenly realised my guy looked like the back of a melted welly boot, but it just, I don't know why. I would get to the Citadel, seemed to be as far as I would get before I would get bored, do something else, lose my place entirely, forget how to control the damn thing, and then just have to start over again. Just, oh, fuck it, might as well. But I finally did it. I finally got into it and, you know, really enjoyed it. It was good fun. I actually did play it on the Xbox, which completely screwed me over because I decided to play Mass Effect 2 on the PC, and it was so much better. Oh my god. See that combat between 1 and 2? Night, day, day being better. Although I'm a night person, day was better because Mass Effect 2 is here. And, I mean, the RPG element was reduced slightly, but actually probably slightly is an understatement. But what can I say? I didn't mind. It was, you know, the RPG elements come up occasionally. The controls, shooting, movement controls, you're doing that for 90% of the game. This is what you're doing with your hands that whole time. That's better. I'm much happier. And so we get to Mass Effect 3, which looks better than the rest of them. Yes, I lost my save file, so it didn't really matter to me. I didn't get caught by the import character bug. And the ending was far from perfect. Absolutely, it was far from perfect. That's not to be denied. But people who are bitching about the choices they were making, it was like, oh, our choices were for nothing, they had no effect. Fucking bullshit! Okay, this is gonna have to be a spoiler. I promise myself I don't do this with games I want you to play, but it has to be said at this point, because if you're bitching about this, you've played through it and you've seen to the ending. The choices you made there did affect you. For one, they've already affected who you're playing with. They've already affected the characters that are alive when you start that game. It would have been really handy if I'd had my Mass Effect 2 save, because I did save everyone at the end of that. And I want to see the Doctor again. She was really nice. She was dead in my Mass Effect 3 game, because I just had to pick one and it would pick all the options for me. And she just didn't give a shit. She was, surprisingly laid back, considering the number of injuries she must have had to deal with. And especially considering that one of my sidekicks might have fallen over more times than I've had hot meals. But yeah, there's your first one right there. Your choices have affected the people that are alive. They've affected the state of the council. They've affected who's in charge of the humans in the Citadel. And this is the major spoiler part. If you've not completed Mass Effect 3, this is the bit where you stop listening for... I'll try and keep it down to a minute. But if you upload the advanced combat protocols to the Geth fleet, then they turn around and they utterly waste the other army they're fighting. I'm suddenly struggling to remember what the race is called. It's the one Tali belongs to, the Drifters. And then she gets to witness from the planet below her entire species getting wiped out. She's seen genocide with her own two eyes. And at that point in the game, she removes her mask, which should be fatal on its own, and then lets herself fall off a cliff. My actions cause somebody to commit suicide. Tell me that choice doesn't fucking make a difference. And again, the ending needed work. Spoilers will end from here on out, by the way. Okay, fair enough. The ending was not up to scratch over 3 games of effort. But, the choices that you made mattered throughout then. And it's not as if, the fact that your choices didn't matter as much as you thought they would. They don't make the rest of the game any less good. It was... I still think Mass Effect 2 is my favourite, just for a couple of different reasons. Because they had to end it with Mass Effect 3, well, at least that small trilogy. They'll make more, they'll make more. But they had to end Mass Effect 3 as the end of that trilogy. So there were some things that were just kind of inevitable. Mass Effect 2, there was much more room for things to just come out of left field. It would be a lot less surprising to see a character die in Mass Effect 3 than it would be in Mass Effect 2, which is probably why I pushed so hard to get everybody saved. But I still enjoyed it. I will probably still go back and play it one day when we have the Uber psychedelic HD remake, whatever our fucking resolutions are up to by then. I liked it. I played it. I completed it. I liked it. Number 11, Max Payne 3. Now, I didn't have the same expectations as, say, something like, Mass Effect 3. and I didn't have the same expectations as some other people had for this. It'd been nearly a decade since the first game had come out. It had been years since I'd even played Max Payne 2 last, and it was a completely different set of developers. So I wasn't expecting it to live up to any standards set by the first Max Payne games. So I was completely unsurprised when the graphic novel sections were jettisoned. I was never expecting that kind of sequel, and from there, I wonder if it might have got a better reception, because I think it was an okay reception it got. Everybody was complaining it gave them migraines. That's not me. I mean, I don't get migraines really. I can watch 3D movies fine. Nothing's wrong. I don't watch many of them though. Maybe I'm just watching the wrong ones. I wonder if those people would have felt the same about this game if it had a different name attached to it. If it wasn't Max Payne 3, if it wasn't this thing that had been not exactly built up for years and years, but at least it was in their mind as with something to compare it to. So I just went into it seeing what would happen, because there's basically nothing familiar about it at all. He ends up in South America, I think. If you've seen the Game Damage, the second pilot they did, it's like, what's wrong with this Max Payne? He's bald, he's got a beard, he could be a completely different guy for all I care. And I kind of had the same and yet the opposite reaction as that. Granted it was definitely different, but I didn't mind it. It might not have been the same to have a Max Payne game like we'd had before, especially with all the different things that had gone on since there. So I just kind of went in and said, this is going to be another game. I'm going to have a look at this. I got to see Euphoria at work. That was great fun. There was times where it was used really, really well. The 2-weapon system, and for some reason I really like games, and there are so few of these, especially on the lower end console. They've kind of moved away from it with abandoning CG cutscenes in as many respects as they can, but even Max Payne 3 got this wrong sometimes. When your character has weapons or items that show up on their player model that you're looking at, so you're like, I'm equipping my guy with a flat jacket. You go out the inventory screen, your character is literally there. He's got a flat jacket on where he didn't have one before. You can see it. And not only would you get Max Payne running around with like the big rifle in one hand and then the handgun in the other, and then just swapping them out, and that just felt so much more realistic. It was nice to see rather than weapon change. I'll be glad to get away from that. It's much more cohesive, And what was I going to say? Oh yes, so you'll get that. You'll have a bit of customization to your character, or just equipping it with new equipment and have it show up on the model, and then it changes to a cutscene and they're using something completely different. And this wasn't just a problem Resident Evil 4 had on the PS2, because the cutscenes were all done as FMVs, and so obviously you can't take any customization that was on the player model into account. No, I'm pretty sure I saw it on the GameCube version as well. He's still holding his very first pistol when I've sold that off, 700 chapters ago. So there's a lot of nice touches to that game, but it was, apart from the fact that I utterly suck at aiming in that game, it was quite fun. It was a good fun game. At number 12, the Blackwell Series. It just makes me extraordinarily happy that there are still point and click games being made and sold these days, and being successful. Because the people behind this, Wadget Eye Games, which I'm pretty sure is just one guy, has been putting these out for a couple of years now, and getting all sorts of acclaim, and with good reason. They're good games. The Blackwell series is 3 or 4 games. Shit. You know, they're using the aging by the minutes adventure game studio system, and still making really good games. I mean, obviously that engine's had improvements made to it to make it you know, not exactly hold up to modern standards. You're not getting full 3D or anything like that, but it's good for your nostalgia bug. It'll scratch that nostalgia itch perfectly. Especially with one of the ones I'm going to mention later from the same guys. But Blackwell is a series of 4 games about mediums and their spirit guides. And when your spirit guide is a 40s man, as in 1940s looking man, possibly 1920s, who talks exactly like you think he would. He wouldn't have that gangster accent, he'd just be a kind of smooth guy. Yeah, him as a spirit guy, so he's got a bit of attitude and he'll talk back to you because he follows you around as you're doing this. I'm spoiling like the first 10 minutes of the first game. You should play it anyway, I'll tell you all about it one day. Number 13, XCOM Enemy Unknown. The trailer for the FPS XCOM reboot less than thrilled me. But I realise now that the only reason I hated that game is because I thought it had killed all hope of the franchise that I really liked coming back. We'd already suffered through missteps like Interceptor. Actually, Apocalypse had a lot of problems as well. But Interceptor is where it started going down. Very noticeably, unmistakably down. And then, you know, you've got missteps like Interceptor, face plants like Enforcer, and you had those minor trips that was the UFO trilogy. You know, those 3 of those were never ever sure if they were actually licensed or not. But they were there. That was my reaction to them. Really, it was just... Even as I'm playing one of them, it's just like, oh, that sure is a game, alright. It did not have the same thing you would hope for from classic XCOM. And then this reboot trailer comes out for a first-person shooter with an obsession with squares, and that looks like the final nail in the coffin. And then Enemy Unknown got announced. It looked great. It looked like a strategy game. Apparently all the team members had played and completed the original, which quite frankly I think should be mandatory. We wouldn't have had that fucking problem with the boss fights in Deus Ex Human Revolution if that had been the case. My main gripe with it is that they hinted at a pre-order bonus of a prototype they'd made, which was a straight remake of the first game in a modern engine. And I was just like, oh. I would have pre-ordered it anyway, but I was just like, oh please. Obviously we didn't get that, otherwise I've been very, very blind. And even if we did get it, it would have been alpha at best, so utterly unpolished, possibly not even fully playable, possibly not playable at all, depends where they got to with it. And it is simpler than the first one, but it gets around a lot of the problems the first one had. At a certain point playing the first game, I would just get bored of the surface battles, and I could get away with it because I could just ignore them. You know, that was actually within my power. It was so strange. Nobody seemed to trip me up on that one, saying, no, fuck you, look after these things, don't just shoot the UFOs down, actually go there. I was like, you're not going to do anything. Research. And in this one, they won't let you away with that at all. You've got your threat level for each council member country, and if that gets too high, they're out. They're gone. You can see it right in front of you. I agree with one of the criticisms the guy behind XCOM had, which was that the geoscape, the view of the globe, was completely pointless. You know, why is that there? Why are you showing me the line that's going on there? Can't you just send me there? Why do you need to show me that? Because it was in the first one? Maybe we didn't need it. Or maybe you needed to make this more useful so that you could justify keeping it. It's a very nice effect, fair enough. Does it need to be there if you're not using it? Probably not. The only other gripe I can think of is sometimes certain UFO ships don't like me, especially when they go up to higher levels, because I'll have trouble hitting the square that's on the ledge. I'll nudge just a bit as I'm pressing the button and go over the ledge, and my guy will go all the fucking way around to the wrong place and be in the line of enemy fire, first in line to get a plasma bolt up his jacksie. That's never fun. But you just have to be extremely careful about where you click it. So yeah, XCOM Enemy Unknown. If it didn't save the franchise, then at least we got a pretty damn good game out of it. Number 14, Gemini Rue. Now, going back to the Blackwell conversation from before, this is made by the same people. This has got a different style to it. I say that the Blackwell series actually evolved the graphical style from game to game, fourth being the most noticeable leap forward. It's, depending on your age, you might not get this, but it looked like it had gone from VGA to SVGA between 3 and 4. For some reason, number 4 just had these nice high-res graphics. But Gemini Road does that kind of... I hate to say modern retro because that makes no fucking sense, but a simple explanation of it would be like a 16-bit resolution with a proper 32-bit color palette. Because proper 16-bit stuff had a limited palette, which means it only had a certain number of colours it could work with, either at one time when drawing one frame, or at all. You know, much in the way you would have 256 colours available, you could only use 64 of them at one time. So you had to split that up between the backgrounds and the different sprites and so on. And you all had to use these 64 colours until you rotated them out. I love that art style. I'll be quite honest, I thought it looked great. It's well done in this game. Unfortunately, the verb interface was pretty awkward. I appreciated the double click to use last verb on thing you've double clicked on. That helped a little bit, not enough. I mean, there just doesn't seem to be a use for a verb interface anymore. I mean, we were abandoning this towards the end of the XCOM games with that little medallion you'd press down and then the things would appear around it, and even then it wasn't a wide selection of verbs. It was like 3, you know, take, use, mouth. I think mouth was usually used for talking, but I could be wrong. We've had so many games since then that can just make do with a left and right mouse button. You know, right mouse to look, left mouse to do shit. And those work. And you don't really need anything else. The gun combat got tricky. There's no denying that one. It got quite fiddly. I do like that it was there though. And it's strange, is that it feels more like something I should master than something I should complain about, if that makes any sense. And it was also quite interesting to switch between 2 different characters, if only because it would help when I got horribly stuck with one of them, which, as it turns out, was his goal, because you get commentary with this as well as bloopers. They appear in the environment like the Half-Life 2 Lost Coast and onwards commentary bubbles. They don't look like the same as those, obviously, but you know, it's that kind of thing. You find them in the environment, you double click on them, you get a blooper, or you get the game's creator telling you about that particular scene. So I did enjoy Gemini Rue. More attentive people than me will see the twist coming, more than likely, but it did kind of catch me by surprise. You know, it wasn't like right when he said it, but a couple of lines before, which is kind of embarrassing, but I'd been playing this over quite a long period. I've been meaning to complete this for since my girlfriend got it for me last Christmas 2010. There's a handful of games I've got between her and her parents that I've been meaning to complete. Gemini Rue is one of them. There's also Batman Arkham City, which I got for my birthday, I think. Yeah, there's a couple of birthday ones in there too. Bastion, which I got from a girlfriend. Batman Arkham City, and The Walking Dead. I've completed a couple of those. You'll find out. Number 15, FTL Faster Than Light. Never before have I loved a game just as much as it has hated me. Perhaps I've been doing this horrendously wrong for months, but I found this game really hard. But it's still fun. It's one of those games that you didn't know you wanted until you actually get it, and then you realise, yes, I have wanted this for quite a while, as it happens. I'm trying to figure out what the difference is between this and Star Command, especially since they both got Kickstarters. And I'm shifting my PC along. See, I'm wondering what the difference between those is. I didn't pledge to the FTL one because I didn't know about it when it was going on, but I now know it's become the Kickstarter poster child for it. This was a successful project, it's out, you can see the result. Which is great, especially considering the game itself is really great. But like I say, it's hard. It's hard to build up a good ship by the time you get through all 8 sectors. And it highly depends on which sectors you end up going through, especially if you go through a bunch of nebulas. Nebulas hate me. Every nebula sector that I jump into has got at least 2 of those environmental hazard ones. And I don't always have long range sensors. I sometimes don't have the fuel or time to get around before the fleet behind me comes and goes up my jacksy. So what the hell am I meant to do to build up a big enough, a powerful enough ship to take on the big bad at the end? And I was contemplating this for a few months after being blown up over and over and over and over and over and over again. But it's such a thrill just to get to the end, never mind getting onto taking on the boss ship. Then you get the thrill of actually beating it, somehow persevering through all its force shields and all its tricky little things, and then it jumps away. It gets away, and your heart sinks down to your testicles. Then there's the thrill of tracking it down again. You get to do this twice. One of them involves a shitload of drones. They're not friendly. They hurt. But months after I bought it, after many a night of exploding ship after exploding ship, trying different configurations, unlocking new ones, getting those blown up, explaining to my girlfriend how moving crew from room to room, opening airlocks and rerouting power were actually all quite fun, I did it. I got to phase 3 of the boss. I pummeled the shields away and let loose with the lasers. Suddenly, the boss blew up. It was glorious. Which I think is worth £8. Number 16, Batman Arkham City. It was Arkham Asylum, but in a big ass city. Turns out that's exactly what I wanted. I did like how the reason that you end up in Arkham City, this escape from New York style prison, I like how the fact that you end up in there actually makes sense. I mean, there is this period at the beginning where Batman has little to no motivation to stay there. That changes fairly quickly, but there is that moment where you think, you could have gone. I mean, he's getting equipment from the Batcave. He should be able to get out of there. God, I don't know. Okay, let's focus on what's different. The variety of villains it's interesting. I'm not into the comic books basically at all. I'm familiar with the movie villains, one or two of the comic book ones. I'm really not all that into it. It's just I'm not very big into comics or the animated series or any of the not any of the films. I've watched the Nolan films. I've got the original Batman sitting on Blu-ray waiting to be watched. I will do it, honest. Okay, let's focus on the other differences. The new Riddler puzzles are both interesting and infuriating. Once you figure out what the deal is between those pressure pads, then you start to get into the swing of things. But they are really annoying at first, and then kind of awkward by the end of it. And one of the good things about it is they let you play on afterwards. I think the Arkham Asylum did this as well, but you get to play on afterwards. And I did the same thing as I did with Arkham Asylum when I got a couple of achievements. Well, I got them. I've played the Arkham Asylum on the Xbox and played the City on PS4, so I get the trophies. Yeah, I went back, got the trophies, tried the challenge room again. I didn't get to score high on that apparently. It's the very first challenge room with third tier score. Go through the game, okay? Although some of these Riddler puzzles are just a bit too tricky for me. I kind of liked it when you could just spot a bit of a question mark and then you know you had to go somewhere within a 50-foot radius to find the corresponding half, line it up, and then hold down L2. That made sense to me, and those are still in there. One thing that's really annoying to me is when you're trying to look for another clue in the same kind of region that another clue's in, and so you just end up spamming L2. Hold down L2, bzz, nothing. Hold down L2, bzz, nothing. Bzz. Oh, there's something! There's something over here. Okay, fly up here. It's out of range. Okay, get closer. It's obscured. Okay, it must be that obstacle. And okay, there it is. Bzz. You've already solved this one. Fuck! There's no reason to keep those in there. You've solved the riddle. You've got the benefit of it. It's just distracting you on your little wild goose chase that you've volunteered for. Yeah. I don't have much more to say about that apart from it's Arkham Asylum, but bigger. I will say this, the grapnel gun going between the bits of the city, it's nicely done. I mean, I like the turns that the alleyways take, the fact that it's not just a grid shape, there's these overhangs, there's these things going between buildings that you have to swoop under sometimes. That's it actually. It's kind of like the web slinging in the good Spider-Man games. If it's done right, you could just do that on its own and you'd be quite happy for a while. Same with Batman. Fly up, swoop, whoosh, beat up a couple of guys if you feel like it. It's got that same feeling to it, and I don't know if they saw it working in another game, because apparently Batman was Arkham Asylum even was meant to be a rhythm action game at first, because they wanted a rhythmic style of combat. And if you've played it, you can see that, because it's all to do with keeping a combo going. Once you unlock a bonus, you can get critical hits by pressing the button at the same time you strike someone else, and you keep doing that, and it ends up looking quite balletic almost with punches. And at one point they were considering turning it just into a rhythm and action game. Surprisingly it didn't go anywhere, but considering, as far as I know, this is like Rocksteady's third game, You know, Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, going backwards obviously, and then this one game, Urban Dead Riot Response, Urban Chaos. Where the hell did I get Urban Dead from? Oh yeah, it's that web game I played. Urban Chaos Riot Response, which is a first-person shooter. It's not bad. Batman games are better, especially City. I just finished it. It's good. And finally, number 17, The Walking Dead. I have not been this depressed since the first hour of Heavy Rain, and I got through that with the help of having my friends on chat at the same time. I eventually just had to put down the controller and go and talk to my friends for a while, because it was probably worse than Heavy Rain because it started off so idyllic before all the bad shit went down. Whereas The Walking Dead starts off bleak as fuck from the get-go. And it's all there's something like moral choice, well, not moral choices precisely, but choices that have an effect later on. You've got Mass Effect, which has spread supposedly hundreds, thousands of these over 3 games. And you might notice the difference between certain choices. Walking Dead kind of ensures that you will notice these choices. Not because the scope of the game is necessarily small, although the environments are quite limited when you move between them. There's no hub that you move around like a traditional point-and-click adventure. I say traditional point-and-click adventure. Did you play Tales from Monkey Island on the PC? We had to hold down and pull the mouse in the direction. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, non sequitur achieved, as they say, is that you are basically guaranteed to see the response to all your choices, whichever one you make at that interval. And the fact that the bleakness doesn't just hold, it just actively gets worse. I mean, it's not like that Heavy Rain where you just kind of get used to the depressing nature of it all and you become numb and you move on. And I'm making this sound probably a lot more deep than most people's experience was of it. But Walking Dead just hits you again and again, harder and again. And I didn't realise with Mass Effect, going back to that, how much of these choices was lost, considering all the other things you had to do. It's not really a criticism, that's what's going to happen. I mean, if you are doing all this stuff, keep absorbing all this story, doing all these other things, and you forget about one choice, yeah, fair enough. There's so much else going on. The Walking Dead, there's almost nothing else going on. So, certain choices that I might have agonised over in another game, I actually find a little easier in The Walking Dead because you're just concentrating on the scenario that's in front of you. You know the score, there's fucking zombies everywhere. Sometimes the solution just jumps straight out at you. I do love that they show you how you compare to the rest of the world. There was quite a few where I differed from the rest of the players. The one I'm proud of, though, is the decision to shoot a girl who has been attacked by zombies, or walkers as they are in the show, and to put her out of her misery, basically. She's already been bitten, she's not going to make it. Best you can do is not have her have the sensation of being eaten for however much longer she's alive. Your buddy with you tries to convince you not to take the shot because it'll attract the zombies towards you. They're attracted by sound. And that was one of the ones where I was in the minority where I did shoot the woman because she was beyond hope. She was never going to recover. Her torso was about to be eaten. So It was much better to go out that way, quite simply. I stand by that choice. But that's the thing about it, Walking Dead, is it is almost all choices. I mean, there's one or two item puzzles. They're there. Most of the time you're just walking around talking to people. I mean, you could probably turn this game into a admittedly very complicated but functional flowchart. It does make you wonder if the gameplay needs to be there at all. It just reminds you of a choose your own adventure book in that way, because you'll just be presented with a bunch of choices, whereas where moving and choices are separate in the Walking Dead choose your own adventure games, they're one and the same. The choices will be equally presented. Also, just to round it off, slight spoiler, but fucking Ben, man. The fuck's wrong with that kid? Taking a hatchet that was barring a door when there are zombies outside. Fucking Ben. So there you have it, 17 games this year, which beats last year's total by -2. I beat 19 last year. Not all of those games were good, mind you. I do have a list for 2011. I'm depending on how this one turns out. I might go back and do that one, because this has turned out long as it is. I think that is sitting pretty at an hour and a half. 2 parts maybe. Depends how the editing job is. So there you go. Games what I finished in 2012. Hopefully I'll get some done this year too, because if it gets smaller, the amount of games I do every year, it's just kind of depressing. Bye.